Hello viewers and welcome to the show Meet Professionals with me, IBKB. Well, Meet Professionals is a show where I hold high-level conversations with academics, professionals, business leaders, executives, change management experts, and many more. Well, today we're right in the office of the Dean Faculty of Management Sciences at IPAM, Dr. Ezekiel Dugamani Lako. Of course, he is a celebrated academic who has won a lot of accolades in the field of academia as well as business, and is also a leader as well as a philanthropist. Thank you so much, viewers, for watching. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ezekiel Dugamani Lako.
Thank you.
How have you been?
Stressfully okay.
Okay, no problem. So let's start with you telling us about your background for where you began to where you are now as the Dean of the Faculty of Management Sciences at IPAM.
Oh, thank you very much. That's quite a long story. If I have to start from the inception, I actually went to several primary schools.
Okay.
Of course, I was given birth by two people.
Okay.
My mom and dad, very helpful people.
Okay.
My mom was a nurse. He retired some 3 years ago from police hospital. And my dad was also an environmental health superintendent. He was into environmental health. So both of them were in the medical field, and they did a lot to see me through my education. I attended Bishop Campbell Nursery School and Bethel Infant School, Wallace Johnson Primary School, and then Police Primary School.
Wow, a lot of primary schools.
I was just moving from primary schools in search of education, and mostly because of distance, I was adjusting to I didn't have a vehicle to take me to school, but I appreciate what my parents did. Yeah. So I went to Albert Academy a year after and schooled there until I passed my exam for university. Of course, when I was waiting for my WAEC result, I did ICM. I registered with ICM, Institute of Commercial Management in UK. Okay. And interestingly, I'm the first to complete the ICM program around the sub-region. Around the sub-region, wow. I was the first. So I was given a scholarship to England by the director of ICM then, Mr. Ford. So I went to England, and when I came back, I became the regional coordinator of ICM for West Africa. Okay. So I was coordinating all ICM programs in West Africa. So by then, several institutions were offering ICM in Sierra Leone. ICM is like ACC and CAT. So ICM is to CIMA, just as CAT is to ACC. So there are exemptions you can get when you do ICM. You can get exemptions to pursue CIMA. Okay. So I immediately registered for the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants in the UK. So I actually came back and I came to college. I was at IPAM, and by then I was now also doing CIMA. So I came and I had a nice time at IPAM. I can still remember when I was in my first year, I represented IPAM in a debate and quiz competition at British Council Intercollegiate, and I was also in the team that should represent Sierra Leone for the Global Youth Platform in the UK, Westminster University. I had another opportunity. Well, lucky me, because there were so many other people who could have, but at times it's nice to just show yourself and make yourself available for things. Yeah, for the opportunity. Yeah, so I actually did, and for IPAM, it was really lovely. I came, it was difficult even to pay my fees, even when I have a very good result. But it was difficult, but I actually spent quality time in college. I was the Student Union President of IPAM. Yes, in 2004-2005 academic year. And I now also became the National Student Union President for Sierra Leone, NUS, National Union of Sierra Leone Students. Yeah, NUS. And yes, so I went to WASU, and there was a time when the interim president of WASU, his term of office ended, and I acted as president for some time. Okay. That was West African Student Union. So I actually did a lot of things in the Student Union, in All African Student Union, We went for the Global African Summit in Libya. We met with Gaddafi, Thabo Mbeki, Obasanjo. So during all this were during my college days. So I enjoyed the student union as well. And interestingly, I can still remember when my then head of department that Bendu called and said, Lako, you have to concentrate, or because most of the student union presidents had not done well before. So you have to concentrate so at least you will pass. And I ended up with the first class.
Wow.
Yes. In applied accounting.
Applied accounting.
Yes. So that was all thankful to the fact that I concentrated. So
even though you were active in student politics and you were doing a lot of things.
And I was reading. So this is the problem. I only concentrated on student union politics, studying, and of course church. I was a chorister in church. I was regular, and I'm also a sports person. I will not tell you about that. so I don't know how later on I became. I was also a little bit of flabbergasted how I went through all these arrangements in unity, should I say, and at the end ended up successful in school. So immediately I left, I went, and IPAM was calling to if I can teach. I said yes, and somebody said, "Oh, Lako, you too scatter. You're not going to teach. You're not going to what?" I came and I appreciated, or I was appreciated as well, and I immediately, after some time, I became the course coordinator for applied accounting.
Okay.
I was working with Mr. Colley. James Colley was the head of department. Then I later helped with the development of the syllabus, the curriculum for banking and finance.
Okay.
So I became the deputy head of department for accountancy.
Okay.
Then I became the head of department for banking and finance, and then became the head of department for accountancy.
Okay.
Then, of course, I am the dean of the Faculty of Management Sciences for now. But very soon, I hope I will move from that and become something else. Because university should be growing.
Yeah.
When I say something else, I mean because dean is just an elected position.
Okay.
I'm not talking about position, but I mean my academic pathway.
Okay.
My desire is to become a full-time professor in my area.
Wow.
And I still don't see a professor. There is no professor in accounting or finance in Sierra Leone, and probably I hope to be one in the near future. So this is what I've done. I've also involved in lots of publications, academic publications in several international journals, and I've done 2 books that I launched last year, and I'm working on other things that are coming out. So my appetite for academia is so big, and I actually want to see other Sierra Leoneans. I know you two have done so well, and you're coming admirably. So that's why our desire for education, the quest for quality education, is so high. At times it's happening when you see people lag behind in the process of achieving quality education. So,
so what a marathon of a journey that you've had, and for the fact that you started as a student and you went on to the you acquired the position of being the head of department for the accountancy department, before that banking and finance, and now you are dean. I think that's so much progressive in the aspect of academia. You know, you start from the bottom, and now you are in a position wherein you supervise all the academics. So one may want to ask, the urge or the appetite in being in academia, was it the fact that you came in contact with the ICM, or when you were young you wanted to be in the profession of academia?
So the question is, I've always loved reading books. I always was very competitive. Well, when I was young, very young, my dad used to write a lot of stuffs for me, and we used to go around and act concerts, British Council. I can still remember. So I used to recite a lot of things. So I fell in love with reading books because I wanted to be that author that my dad was. So, and later I met a lot of friends. That's why peer pressure is very important.
Yeah, sure.
I met friends that were always reading, so we started competing in novels. I can still remember in those days, somebody would tell you, have you read all Jeffrey Archer's books? Jeffrey Archer, Sidney Sheldon, Tom Clancy, John Grisham. If you have not, then you'll be in trouble. We'll read and go to James Hadley Chase, Mills and Boone. You read all of these books, and in a way that if you've not read something, you become embarrassed when you met with somebody who've done. So this is what increases your appetite. And so then the desire expands. So you want to see, and I go with some people at home that inspired me. There was a guy in our church, there's a man, he's still there, and I always consider him to be my mentor. So this man was a chartered accountant, he's Sima. His name is Kweku Hinstins, and he was the chief accountant at NIC then, and at the same time you used to see him going down fetching water for his mom. Okay. So that was, look at this educated man, yes, and he's so humble. So I wanted to be him, and I wanted to be Redu Sawyer. When you listen to him speak, and so you aspire and desire to become these people, and so you actually paid attention, genuine attention, to achieving that. And secondly, you came from a background where your mom and dad are very interested to make something out of you, and it was very challenging for them to do it, even though they want to do, but they were constrained financially and otherwise. But you see, so therefore, what compensates for that desire is your own internal ability, self-discipline and action that you put into yourself in order for you to be able to meet the desire of your parents as well. So I actually would say in conclusion, I became what they wanted me to be. So, and since I came to IPAM, when I was a student, since I came and bought form, I'm still here teaching, and it's just something I love. You're
still kicking and grooving here.
It's just something I love to, because there are lots of opportunities I've met out there. I'm also a Fulbright scholar. I was given a Fulbright scholarship by the American government, by the State Department, and I went to Syracuse University. The Maxwell School of Syracuse University is #1. It's rated #1 for public finance in America. And their MP in finance is #1, even rated than Harvard. Yes, so I went to school. That's the same school that Joe Biden went to. That's where he did his JD.
How impressive.
Yeah, so I used to tell people that he would have been my classmate if I had been there in the 70s.
No problem. Okay, so Dr. Lako, you are someone who has been so much active in academia, in as much as you were a student and now you are that active, celebrated academic. Now, there are a lot of challenges in our educational sector, and I'd like you to take us through the general perspective about education in Sierra Leone.
Interesting, very interesting. One thing I've learned is Sierra Leoneans love education. We love education. We love to be educated. We love the titles. We love to be referred to as graduates. We love the amount of degrees. I too, I fell in love with that. I want this lot of master's degrees, and probably if I can have
and you acquired a lot of them.
5 years, I did. And later, you find out that there is really a gap in as much as we love education, but we're making a very serious mistake. There's a difference between education. There's a difference between going to college and the skills that you acquire. There's a difference. So somebody will ask you, what is your, I watch a movie and somebody asks the guy, say, what's your level of expertise? What's your area of expertise? And the guy could not answer the question. You can still come to school, acquire a degree, but you're not an expert in something. And that is where the importance of skill comes in. So we acquire knowledge, but most people also don't concentrate much on the acquisition of specific skills. These are the things that build you up. For example, my desire has been to develop a skill in financial management. You understand? So I want to be that financial management person. I want to be that financial economics person that can advise any firm, organization on anything requiring project financing, business planning, and anything that concerns figure in decision making. So these are the skills I've developed. So I've gone beyond education to acquire these skills that I will be able to sell, and I've in so many occasions participated in activities where I'm able to sell these skills. Another mistake that we have made in education is there's a difference between the degrees and the mindset. So I will say education is a function of the mindset. And we
function of the mindset.
Yes, so we have got lots of papers, but we have not developed the mindset. And it's only when you develop the mindset that you will understand that education is a very serious process that cannot be compromised. And yet again, I will say, because of this love for education that we have, and the rush for education, we have compromised the skills and we have compromised the mindset. And when both of them are compromised, we're in a situation where there is a supply-demand gap. You see lots of people we are supplying lots of graduates, and at the same time, the required tendency, the required ingredients for demand, it's not, they don't meet the fundamental requisite. The price for demand in education is not met, and that has constrained the entire education quality. I'll give you a walkthrough. And that was precipitated by the fact that parents wanted their children to be educated. So therefore, and also teachers also participated in that a little bit. I'm a teacher, I would say. And so when the kids were in primary school, we tell them to come with whips. You remember these things, canes, to school. And we tell them every Wednesday come with a cane and 5,000 leones. So what you create, you have created a transaction between teacher and student. So right from primary school, they've now begin to bring money.
Art and craft.
Yes, art and craft. Money.
I used to take soaps and things to school. So that is a civilized way to begin to create exchange. If they should take these things to let them create, the parents should have. You understand? Instead of the kids.
Yes, instead of the kids. So when you create that, you create financial transaction. I can still remember when people used to come around the school. So people still go around schools during NPSC exams. So they would stand around the schools. Later, some of them started going to the school compound. And we even had instances where people are aiding the kids to pass exam. You don't aid the kid to pass exam, because it's not, then the passing will not be knowledge-based, it will be help-based. And you don't help in education. The word help should not exist, because it's a process. You facilitate the process of skill acquisition, and you don't help the person to pass by giving the person false grade and false impression. So this is what has happened, and to the extent that there are instances where if you don't attend syndicates, you will not get the grade. So the grades now will be the highest. The grades will now be the people who have attended the teachers' syndicate. Or even so, these are all trouble, but all depends on motivation. For me, I will not say I am not motivated, that's why I am doing that. You cannot say that, because if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Because these kids that gives you money to pass are the same people who will judge you when you become somebody in society. They will not look at you as a teacher. They will look at you as somebody who they've given money in the past. Yes, look at that guy that used to help world. So this is fundamental, and that is what has affected education. So in a nutshell, we found out that the people that did MBA in Sierra Leone are not the people that are doing business. The people that did engineering are not much into the construction industry. Most of these things now are done by other people coming to Sierra Leone to help us. And if we are educated, we should now be very resolved to take on the platform, innovate. See this innovation that you've done. You innovate and get things done, get something new, and see how you can participate in the process of national development, rather than just
because what you just said, there is a model that I'm so passionate about, which is the Bloom's taxonomy, and that at the rock bottom of that pyramid is the level of cram, copy, cram, and pass concept. According to him, that's the lowest form of knowledge acquisition, wherein you have graduates, you have people going to school, but all they are concerned about is just the content and not the acquisition of skills. Because you mentioned just now that, in fact, there were a couple of instances when companies like African Minerals, London Mining, they had to bring in expatriates because the skills they wanted at that time was not readily available.
Even basic skills. So basic skills. So this is the problem. And what you say, it's so true about that pyramid. Because what I said is, we like titles essentially, we like positions. We like to be referred to big things. And people don't know that these things doesn't even last. But when we're properly educated, like people like J.D. Ali, and these things last for
lifelong, generational.
Yes. So even the kids yet unborn will come one day and they will talk about J.D. Ali. They will always talk about people like Chinua Achebe. So this is it. So you don't, and that's come and pass. Even students now, in fact, it has gone to the level where they will only read the notes you give them.
You don't have time to do research.
No research, no library. I will tell you that more than 90% of the students might never have visited the library.
Really?
Yes, they will ask them the call of the library. They will only go there to register, but to go and sit in the library and read and take book from the library. Ask how many students. Ask how many students, or say people. So this is destroying education because they just concentrate on the exam-based education. I pass exam, I get grade. So that's why even in teaching, for example, we're doing that at IPAM a lot. Okay. Even in teaching, what we concentrate, we do seminars, we'll start probably in the future begin to look at doing documentaries. Like the way you teach, Dr. Nuni will come and give them case studies. Yeah. You know, these are the things. Let them learn for themselves based on the things that they see in society. Rather than begin to say type of this, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. That is cognitive. Okay. And that doesn't help at all. For me, I think the aspect of cognitive, it has to be in the aspect of the primary school. But like you mentioned, the appetite that pupils or students have now in Sierra Leone is just to pass rather than acquisition of knowledge. So I'd like to hold you there, Dr. Ezekiel Duramani Lako. So we'll go for a short break and we will be right back. Thank you.
So welcome again, viewers. Welcome to the show Meet Professionals with me, IB Kebe. Well, Meet Professionals is a show where I hold conversations with academics, professionals, researchers, change management experts, and many more. Well, we'll be holding a high-level conversation with the Dean, Faculty of Management Sciences at IPAM, who is Dr. Duramani Lako. He is an expert, a financial management expert, and also an academic. Welcome again to the show, Dr. Lako.
Thank you.
So now we've been discussing generally around the educational landscape in Sierra Leone. So I'd like us to dive in deep, looking at your position as a dean. What are some of the challenges you face so far as a dean? Okay, so first of all, I just want to make a clarification. Most people misinterpret the dean position. It's not the head of campus. Okay. A dean is just head of an academic unit, a faculty. Okay. And there might be different faculties and different deans. Okay. And I want people to know that. And as well, deans is not an appointed position. They don't appoint you into dean position. You are elected by your peers. Okay. And you're in a faculty. But you need to meet, so have met some certain qualifications or criteria before you are eligible for elections. Okay. Okay. And you're elected for a term of 2 years. Okay, just 2 years. For 2 terms. Okay, 2 terms. Yes. Okay. Okay. Now, so basically, interestingly, I've been around, and before I became dean, I've known some of the fundamental problems. Okay. You know that people want to be educated, and you know about the challenges of quality education, and as much as you have lots of good students who want to achieve quality education, you also have lots who want to circumvent quality. Okay. So since I was head of department and now dean, and interestingly, I sit in a faculty, in a very large faculty, very large faculty, right? In a very incredible situation, in what I would describe as the best business management school in Sierra Leone. Yeah. So, in as much as we are, but it's also very challenging because the demand for the college, IPAM specifically, is high. You have lots of people who want to come to IPAM, and at the same time, in as much as you want to maintain quality, you have to cater for most of the people that are qualified. Okay. So we were always trying to strike the balance as against a very high lecturer to student ratio. So, and again, most of the people that teach at IPAM, most of the people that teach at IPAM basically are professionals as well who have opportunity out there. Okay. for big jobs and etc. Okay. Most people that are qualified to teach in the areas in subjects that we're doing are also wanted in society badly. Yeah, so most of them you can only get them as associates. Okay, why not full time? Because it's difficult to get them for full time because the market price for them is high, and the institution cannot cater for that price. So you're always competing with the market for them. Okay. So it's only sacrifice that you, the full timer, will make to stay here because the opportunity cost of going out there. There is also an opportunity of going out there that is bigger and more lucrative than to stay here. So we've been here,
And the challenges are interesting. First of all, before you go to the challenges, what I have done as Dean is to, first of all, foster a learning environment that will be able to cater for the required number of students, and at the same time build up academia among colleagues, among the peers, and at the same time ensuring that you're able to curtail on the level of malpractice and improve on the quality of education in the college, in my faculty in particular. So I also sit as chairman for the disciplinary committee as well. So because of this experience, I'm able to do a lot of things. One thing that we have achieved is that the numbers that we are coming in thousands. There was a time you used to have 1,000 students in year one. In business admin alone, you will accept 1,000 students.
Right.
Applied accounting, you accept 900. Financial services, so you accept students in their thousands. So IPAM, I also tell people, is the only college in the world where you run 3 shifts. Morning, afternoon, and evening. Yeah. So to sit as a dean in that situation, it's so difficult. But the dean is a little bit better. Look at the heads of departments, what they are going through, the challenges to deliver for these students. So that's why I said it's a job where you get a lot of blessings to do. So when we took over, we were able to negotiate with the university to be able to cut the numbers. So now, in as much as you have 1,000 people who are qualified, we run a very robust interview system that will be able to get the required number that our classes can contain. So we are cutting down the numbers. For the past 2 years, we have been cutting down the numbers. Our total intake in year one, we'll be able to reduce drastically, probably to half. And this academic year again, I will tell you some classes we did not even take up to 500. We used to take 1,000. Wow. So all that we do through the interview. And another challenge, one of the challenges we are getting is the mismatch between the entry requirements and the okay. So what did I say? The mismatch between the qualifications the students are coming with and the knowledge that they already have. Okay. So you see a lot of people with 5 subjects, and when they come to college, they struggle to pass in the system. And we should be able to run a system that we should be able to identify and eliminate the people that are not actually eligible to acquire a high-profile university qualification. So you cater the genuine people. They deserve good education. They deserve quality education, because whosoever you put out there, we should be able to represent Sierra Leone. So when we begin to, so therefore we also went again to institute a very strict examination procedure, wherein people will actually get what they deserve in a way that will be able to compensate for quality. And that is very, very important. So we were able to do that, but that also is very challenging. And one of the biggest challenges, or challenge I've had, very serious challenge, is external interference in education system. What do you mean by that? Well, you have lots of people. I don't know why people think education should be compromised or negotiated. Okay. So people will, a lot of the time, because you sit as dean, when it comes to, if somebody comes with 5 subjects and the person got an A in maths and the person cannot answer basic questions for an interview that I did not conduct, that was conducted by other lecturers, and you also call another interview, say, re-interview this person, and the person still failed to answer basic questions in that subject that he got an A in, that person should not be accepted. Right. So we do that, and the focus is to eliminate those that are not qualified. Yeah. And if you have a list of 500 people and 400 are not qualified, 400 have qualified, very good, but very few, 10, 20 are very, very suspicious. What you do is not to accept them in your system. And if you don't accept them, you get calls from everywhere. Everybody will call. So this is the thing. So what happened, what I'm suspecting, there are people who they've been negotiating for them since they were in primary school. Right. They went to secondary school, they negotiated their way. And they now in university, they want to negotiate their way. And that should not happen. So even when they are in the system, you see somebody having 37 grade and say, oh, would you round it up? And one thing that I want to make clear, the issue of rounding up of grade is not a legal issue. We don't round up grades in university. However, in faculty board meetings, lecturers will be given permission based on certain request and the nature and scope of the examination to say, okay, if you can add 2 marks for these students right across, and when you add, somebody would be 68 and the person, and you will be 38. If you are adding somebody for somebody with 38 to make a 40 grade, you should be able to add 68 to make an A grade. So you should be able to add for everybody. You don't select people and add grade for them. It's corruption. So most times we'll add right across. And if you were, let us assume that you are 33%, and that 33% is also continuous assessment for an examination. So probably your grade might even be 23, and when you add continuous assessment, you have 33. And if they add 5, you have 38. And now you're telling me to round up the 38. That means you are instructing us, or the public wants us to begin to produce people that are not even fit for classrooms. And if they are not fit for classrooms, they cannot fit out there. If these people become medical doctors or nurses, or would you allow them to operate you? If these people become accountants, would you allow them to balance your books? So that's why what you supply to the private and public sector should be of that standard, and people now will trust university. But when you have a weak hypothesis on the quality that will produce, that will seclude and weaken public perception of university graduates. So that has been a major challenge that I have faced as a dean, and I still continue to face it every day, because every time people look at you as a very bad person, and you lose friends in the process of wanting qualities. And some of these people are the same people that will go out there and say, oh, which type of students are you producing? These students cannot do this. And when you want to put the modalities to achieve that, these same people will come back and say, oh, okay, look at how you are doing. Somebody just called me the other day, for example, and said, oh, what's that happened there? I said, what do you mean? No, I have a problem with a student. A student called me and she has I said, what's the problem? And she said she has 38. So somebody having 38, is it a problem of IPAM? Is it a problem? It's not a problem. The person did not pass and is a problem. So IPAM should begin to produce special pens to give it to people to pass. And one thing that I want to tell people out there, IPAM is a very reputable, highly standard university in terms of delivery and in terms of examination method. So what we do, we want to maintain that, and we want students to actually come in and maintain that standard. And the process of maintaining that, you have some people who want to, very few, who want to just have their way.
Doc, so you made mention of having a standardized exams. Why is it that? Is it because of the standardized exams, that's why we're having a lot of failures in the system?
Well, people should be able to benefit from that. So far as I'm concerned, if you are studious, you come and work your way. For example, now, we make sure that lecturers don't draw questions in areas that they did not teach. Okay. We do that all the time. Okay. We make sure you only draw questions. So that's one of the standards. Secondly, we also do conference marking, and we can also second mark, and we can also remark your script. And so this is the issue. So to me, the reason why we're having high number of failures is the fact that people don't actually concentrate. They only begin to read 2 weeks to examination. Right. And when you are in college, the 4 years you're spending in college, use that 4 years, 90% of your time should be on your education. Spend it as if you're a graduate in college. So read every day, buy new materials, read out of what you are taught in classroom, develop a big idea, and that helps you to boost your education and your widens, that boosts your education and widens your knowledge. Okay. But if you're just waiting to read 2 weeks to examination, then that's, and then secondly is an entry problem and the background problem. At times people fail because of the background. They don't have background. If you don't have the background in primary school and you work your way through, you don't have the background in secondary school and work your way through, then when you come to a standard exam in the university, you cannot be processed well at the university. No, you cannot be, no matter what happens. Sometimes you have students that don't even attend classes, and we cannot easily monitor that because of the large classes. Right. The large class size. So a number of students in the class. So because it's difficult, so all that contribute. So regardless of the large class size, IPAM has produced some of the best students out there. People that have gone out and represented Sierra Leone. People that have passed international examination and they have done well. So when you want to learn, you will learn. But people that want to play, someone once told me that if you survive in an educational system like Sierra Leone's, you survive in any other educational system. I believe so, because I have been out there and I've seen I've struggled and I was able to cope because of what I went through in Sierra Leone.
Okay, so Doc, amidst all the challenges we face in the educational sector as a dean, what are the solutions? Because we're now concerned, if we want to increase quality, then we should think of the processes and procedures, right? So how do we enhance quality in the educational sector?
Academic discipline.
Okay.
So first of all, I spoke about the mindset. So it starts with us, the lecturers. We should have a mindset that, okay, my focus is to give quality education. Treat these students as your kids. You don't
That's important.
You don't want your kid to just get slack education if you're a lecturer,
yes,
because you know
exactly.
the meaning of education.
Exactly.
So treat them as a kid, as your kids, and make sure you mentor them well. When I go to classroom every day, I spend 10 hours talking to them about basic principles of life. So when they believe in these basic principles, you help to change their mindset and let them believe that education is not the paper, it's the skills that you acquire. I'll give you an example. Somebody called for an interview and the student that brought in all their certificates failed the interview. These guys walked in and said, I have these qualifications, but I forgot my certificate. And they said, okay, let us interview you. Since you're here, you send your certificate later. And the guy that did not come with certificate was the guy that passed the interview. So it's not about certificates, it's about the knowledge that you have. And so when we begin to think, so to me, I think we should go back to the drawing board. It starts with the teachers in schools. Tell them that you cannot compensate favor in education.
Right,
you cannot give
right.
people what they don't have.
So it has to start right from the primary schools.
Yes, there was a professor in IPAM, Professor he says a genuine D is better than a bad A. If you have D or C in an exam and it's genuine, if you have a genuine third class, people have got third class and have made it in life. People have got, but if you know you have a first class, second class, third class, these are all standard of measurement in education.
Exactly.
But if you produce somebody as first class that cannot represent that division, then you're doing bad, because somebody with third class will excel, and they always go out there and excel if you have a very, and at times people that don't compromise are the people that get the third class. I'm just saying at times.
Okay.
So this is why, so the way forward is that for us as a nation in general, it's a mindset issue. If the country doesn't change to that direction, it will be very difficult to achieve in education.
Right,
so let people begin to take education seriously. When they give you deadline, you take it seriously. When you are in school, you know that you have a reference, take it seriously. Don't think you can negotiate your way. And once these students, mind you, these students are serious. They are serious, they are smart. I know them. And once they know that it cannot be negotiated, once they know that it cannot be compromised, they will now go and do the needful, the option of reading the books, taking the exams, passing the exams. But if they know that it can be negotiated, if they know that it can be compromised, you know what will happen? Even the brilliant one will say, oh, why should I read when I can get it easy? And so they will stop reading. And when the entire country stops reading, then people begin to produce paper.
That will be chaos.
I used to say you should go now and pay your fees for 4 years and come for the paper. We'll type it and give it to you if paper is what you want. But paper is not what we should want. If you have, look at what happens. I've seen people come into Sierra Leone with diplomas, sound diplomas, and these people can represent well.
They can do well.
They can do well, and they don't have masters in
this. So
this is, it's not a game of too many master's degree. I am guilty, but forgive me. It's a game of the skills that you have acquired. I think that's what is important.
Okay, I think, do you think bringing or adopting technological advancement into education can streamline a lot of issues that we have? Because it's too rigid. Our educational system is too manual. Do you think we should, or it's high time we embrace technology?
In fact, that is the ultimate. When I wrote the 2016 IPAM Bourguet project, one thing that I said there is that if we don't, for example, at IPAM, if we don't relocate and introduce technology in the next 2 years, we'll have a problem with the system. And that's what we are facing today.
Exactly.
The manual system we operate in is so elastic that no matter how much human effort is given to it, we have reached our production possibility frontier. And we cannot go beyond that except with the use of technology. Academic management systems, it will help us to checkmate a lot of things. For example, registration and payment. You don't even need to tell somebody to register and pay. If you're not registered and pay, you cannot go online to access your timetable.
Right, exactly.
You cannot even send assignments
or notes, access the notes.
To the portal. Yes, the notes, assignment, more, you understand? And And you cannot, I know we are doing well, we are trying to introduce technology now, but we need a robust technology. If you go to some university, just with your app on your phone, you can check your results, print your transcript,
because
and you not have
you cannot
access
have
to
students queuing up for registration. It's too chaotic.
It's too chaotic. We are trying to reduce that right now, but lots need to be done. We need real innovation. We need smartness in the system to be able to produce. We need more universities in Sierra Leone. We need to create. We need to employ more academics. We need to. There is a difference between degree holders and academics. Okay. We need to produce more academics, serious-minded academics who should come to the university and treat it very seriously, as if it's the pinnacle of national development achievement. Okay,
Doc. As we conclude, I'd like to, what would be your word of advice to young professionals who want to be in the field of academia, in terms of how do we move from one level to another?
So, interestingly, for young people who want to be in academia, you have to take it as a passion. You don't have to take it as, so you don't use academia to impress people. Oh, well, I want to be this just because of the impression that you create in it. You have to take it as a passion, as a religion. A religion, not as in the religion that we worship God. I'm not trying to diminish the religion that we worship God. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to take it religiously, just as you take yourself so seriously. You have to take it so seriously. And you have to challenge, get the right education, quality education. And when you come in, and one thing that you want to know, that you're going to make a lot of sacrifice, and the sacrifices you make, the students you deal with, is just like producing nuts. If you produce a bad nut, then definitely it will taste bad in the mouth of the customer. Yeah, so exactly. When you come, you want to operate like a very good machine. Don't bring, you should be very friendly as a professional. There is a difference between your human relation and your professional relationship. Always try to create that gap. In as much, treat people as equals. Okay. Treat them with respect. But when it comes to the line where education is the subject matter, try to let them understand. Even though you make it simple for them, but let them understand that it's also a difficult thing that they should acquire. And as well as young professionals, when we have to take lives and ourselves seriously, because your student should be able to see you as your mentor. If your students are not seeing you as their mentor, then it's scary. They should not see you as that careless person who is always helping them with every little thing, taking them, going around to people, try to get things for them easily. When you do that for them, oh, they will love you. People love that, but there are always people who look at you with a grain and a pinch of salt. Okay. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Ezekiel Dramani Lako. This is where we draw down the curtains for today's edition of the program, Meet Professional. We want to thank you for allowing us to be in your office. As you can see, viewers, he's one of the most celebrated academics we have in Sierra Leone, and we want to thank you for your continuous strive in making sure our educational system is attractive. So viewers, don't forget to subscribe. You see this video and subsequent videos will be uploaded very soon. We want to thank you so much, sir. Thank you.